Well, good evening, and thank you all for joining us today, and thank you, Auntie Violet, for that beautiful welcome to country and the reminder about how it is all of our business to be here today and to be part of this very special launch event. For Julian and I, this is the first parliamentary event that the Parliamentary Friendship Group for Endometriosis Awareness is launching, and I wanted to speak first to talk about a little bit about the group's history, but to also welcome Julian to the role as being co-chair. Can I acknowledge Gay Brogden that is in the room, and Gay was one of the founding co-chairs of this organisation. Many of us were in the Parliament where she would use what we call member statements, which is a 90-second rant right before question time to get up. And each day, every day, would have a beautiful story to share about endo warriors and endometriosis and how we needed to do more. And it wasn't just Gay, but there were others. But from that led to the creation of the Parliamentary Friendship Group to raise awareness. And I acknowledge that because this group has always been a bipartisan group. It has been a group of not just women, parliamentarians, but women and men advocating for change, advocating for recognition, advocating for government support and policy. And that is why it is so wonderful to see someone like Julian step into the role to co-chair to really highlight that it's not just women's business, that yes, we want to support women access the healthcare that they need, but we also need to acknowledge that behind every woman in this battle is a partner, is a husband, is a family, is a brother, is an uncle, is somebody that is there to say, I believe you and I'm with you on that journey. So that's why our group is evolving and we are seeing more and more women and men getting actively involved. So I'll hand over to Julian in a few moments. All my other parliamentary colleagues that are here, welcome. Thank you for your continued support for this group. For those who aren't used to parliamentary events at Parliament House, if the bells ring, you will see people get up and leave. We're not being rude, but there is a vote. There'll also be more of our colleagues coming and joining us throughout the evening, just with the busyness of Parliament. But be in no doubt the commitment that our group has towards this cause, and in no doubt of the bipartisan nature in which we come to you to stand, ready to fight side by side with all our endo warriors, with all of our speakers today, thank you, but with everybody, including the amazing Donna and the advocacy and the history that you bring to this campaign. So welcome everyone back to Parliament House, and I'll hand over to Julian to say a few words.
Well, thank you, Lisa. It's just a delight to work with you as your new co-chair in the Parliamentary Friends of Endometriosis. And can I join you in acknowledging the parliamentary colleagues who are here? In fact, can I ask the parliamentarians who are here, there's not a huge number of them, but I'd like them to stand up so you can all see them and acknowledge who's here at the moment, which is great. And as Lisa says, not only will you hear bells, but people will come in and out from time to time because it's a jam-packed schedule. And I particularly want to acknowledge my colleague Anne Ruston, who's the Shadow Minister for Health. You're hearing from the Health Minister with responsibilities for endometriosis and women's health a bit later. But Lisa is absolutely right. This has always been a bipartisan cause. In fact, it's wonderful to see Gay back in the House, and her founding co-chair is a woman called Nicole Flint. And Nicole got involved in this because friends of hers had endometriosis, and then about a year and a half after she'd founded after she'd been one of the founders of this organisation, she found that she herself had endometriosis too. And I think one of the big challenges here is people getting diagnosed. We heard the wonderful welcome from my favourite Ngunnawal elder. It's always bad to have a favourite Ngunnawal elder. It's like having a favourite child, but my favourite Ngunnawal elder is Auntie Violet. And what Auntie Violet brings when she gives a welcome is she often talks about her family, and she's so proud of her grandchildren. And she gets such joy from her family. And I think it's actually a really good segue to what endometriosis is about, because for so many women who have endometriosis, it makes having a family challenging or even impossible. And we want women to be able to experience the joy of having a family if that's what they choose to do and if that's what they can do. And often it's the misdiagnosis that makes that so much harder. I've been involved in this issue because, as Lisa said, as all of us who've been involved in this have been, we've got some personal experience. My wife has endo. She had multiple surgeries. We had a very difficult journey to have our children. And she suffered from very bad period pain for many, many years and suffered in silence and thought it was normal. And she was misdiagnosed. And my key message to the women of Australia is period pain is not normal. Don't be satisfied with the first diagnosis. Check and check again, and go and get a second opinion. And that's the most important message. And my message to the partners, the husbands and so on is it's so important that you support the amazing women who are in our lives, who are going through the terrible pain of endo, and our support is important. And can I say to everyone who's here with lived experience, you are amazing. Every time I come to this event, I'm inspired by the amazing people who are here, who are willing to share their stories and are willing to put themselves forward in order that we can make real progress on this. And Lisa is right. This has been a great group, and it's one of those parliamentary friendship groups that is well known for actually achieving change. So I look forward to working with Lisa. I'm excited about it, to continuing that journey. So thank you very much.
Your presence here demonstrates the broad parliamentary support for addressing endometriosis, and so we are very excited, and also excited that Gay, who was also on our board, is here today. So she kind of started all of this for us. I'd also want to acknowledge the Australian Endometriosis Australia board who are here: Paul Ellis, Gemma Hardy, Kim G, Donna Chicha, Belinda Olnikshak, and Associate Professor Anusch Yazdani. They will be here, and they will come and speak to you and chew your ear off about what we're doing, so look out for them later. Now, for some of those of you who are less familiar with endometriosis, let me explain what we're actually talking about. So it's a chronic condition associated with pelvic pain and fertility issues, and where tissue similar to the lining of the womb grows outside it in other parts of the body. It primarily affects the pelvic region, but can also be found in areas surrounding the bowel, the bladder, as well as the skin, joints, and lungs and brain. It's a whole body inflammatory condition that can affect those presumed female at birth from prepubescence through to beyond menopause, regardless of age, background or lifestyle. 1 in 7 women and people assigned female at birth have endometriosis by the age of 49. That means it's affecting someone you know, a colleague, a family member, a friend. This is personal for me. I was diagnosed in 2002, 19 years after the onset of my symptoms, 19 years of being told the severe pain was normal. But it's not just my story. Just last week, a parent reached out, a single parent of a 14-year-old daughter, 3 years of severe pain. She's missed 80 days of school last year, a gifted student, athlete and artist, watching her opportunities disappear. Her mother wrote to us, Emily was a gifted skater and her local skate park was her happy place until endometriosis stopped her from skating. It's been over a year since Emily has been on her board. She wants nothing but to be pain-free and also saddened that endometriosis controls her life and mine. Emily created this artwork depicting herself drowning in blood and taking her last breath. Endometriosis controls Emily's life in all ways: her heart, her mind, her body. She's not living, she's barely coping, numb and not feeling. Every day is a struggle. This is the reality for some families right now, and in our last panel today, we'll hear about what we're doing to address this, to give young people and their families the support and hope they desperately need. Now, here's what's changed since the National Action Plan on Endometriosis when it was tabled back in 2018. Awareness in Australia has grown exponentially. We've gone from endometriosis being something people have never heard of to, like we've just heard, endo becoming everyday shorthand. I want to acknowledge Southern Cross Austereo's extraordinary donation of close to 50 million in airtime on national radio, audio streaming and regional television for helping us amplify awareness over the last 2 years. Research conducted by SCA tells us more women are seeking a second opinion when their period symptoms are dismissed. Thanks to this support, people now quote, "Period pain is not normal." They know it, they say it, and they're acting on it. Endometriosis Australia is now firmly acknowledged as a national peak body. That means we have a responsibility and an opportunity to lead the way in creating systemic change. Today we'll hear from our Medical Director, Associate Professor Anusch Yazdani, on how much has changed from the launch of the NAPE in 2018, and Minister White will speak to the government's ongoing commitment to women's health funding. And you'll hear from our lived experience panel. This is where we all get excited because Lucia Field, the Blue Wiggle, and her mum Mickey are here, and Winter Olympian Holly Crawford, and our sports therapist and physiotherapist who's joined our clinical advisory committee, Jess Cunningham. And later, I'll share exciting news about our partnership with a major sporting event this March and our plans to extend Endo Academy, our education platform, to the grassroots sports field. But first, this is why we're here. This is the official launch of EndoThrive, Australia's first endometriosis-friendly workplace accreditation program. It's not just another program, workplace program launch. It's the culmination of years of listening to women with endometriosis tell us what they actually need. These aren't statistics, these are real lives, real careers, real dreams that have been derailed by a condition that affects 1 in 7 women and yet remains chronically underfunded, under-researched and misunderstood. EndoThrive is that answer to that, a concrete, scalable, evidence-based answer that shows Australian workplaces what they can and should do better. I invite you to listen to learn and to imagine what Australia could look like if EndoThrive accreditation became the standard and not the exception. To tell us all about it, we have... You guys are up. I'll now invite our first panel to join us. We've got Ellie Angel-Mobbs, long-time Endometriosis Australia ambassador, who will be moderating and who was instrumental in brokering the Southern Cross Austereo deal. Donna Chitcher, Deputy Chair of Endometriosis Australia, who's a woman who started all of this. Divya Gokul, our EndoThrive Program Manager, and Dani DiFalco, Head of People and Culture from Showpo, representing one of Australia's first EndoThrive accredited workplaces. Great, thank you ladies, everyone.
Thank you. Thanks, Mon. Hi team, thank you very much. My name is Ellie Angel-Mobbs. As mentioned, I do work for Southern Cross Austereo, where I'm a radio announcer, and I heard the commercials on the radio where they're talking about period pain is not normal, and when I first heard that I had goosebumps on my arms. I never thought that we'd actually be having conversations like that on the radio, on TV, going national, so it really is exciting to be able to join you today, and also to welcome Julian and Leeser and everyone here along today. I know you're busy, and just quietly I really want to welcome Julian to the Mendo Club. So this is something I started. This is for men who support women with endometriosis. My dad's in it. Shout out to Mr. Mobbs down the back there. My husband is in it as well, but really we are so lucky to have amazing men like you who are championing us, so thank you very much for your time today. But we're very excited too to hear all about EndoThrive and how this is really making a forefront in the workplace. And to tell us all about it, we have got Donna, the amazing brains behind it. So let's rewind. Let's go back to your COVID era. Very Taylor Swift lingo there with era. But we're going back to COVID with the research. The key insights from endo sufferers about their workplace challenges. What sparked the idea for EndoThrive to happen?
I was sitting in a room going, what a great opportunity during COVID. Everyone's at home. Let's find out what it's like if it makes it easier to manage the disease when you're living and working at home. So I pitched the idea to Mike Armour, which is an amazing researcher that helped me out. And so we put this together during COVID. So it worked out great timing. And I think that's started the ball rolling of really being able to uncover the depth of which endometriosis impacts people at work.
Now, what surprised you the most when you started doing the research? And I'm sure that there were some barriers which you hadn't even anticipated that come to the forefront.
Well, there was things that really surprised me were with this particular research were the people were actually very well qualified. We had people that were high income earning that were qualified, but they were also very scared to speak out. We have a barrister that I'd spoken to, and she was so scared to tell anyone that she had endometriosis because she knew it was going to impact how people perceived her and about her ability to have work. So I think that was what really surprised me about the amount of highly educated people that responded to the research, and they were all from all different walks of life, and including high-income earners.
It was really interesting during COVID and the ability to work from home. And when you do have endometriosis, you do have the endo-bloated belly. So to be able to be at home and comfortable, this is one of the great things to come out of COVID. And I'm sure that you had things come through like that. But when you first saw the research, what made you realise that more needed to be done than just a report and to actually start this structured accreditation program like EndoThrive?
We'd been actually talking about a workplace program for quite a few years, and we've been in discussions with Endometriosis UK about their program. But what this research gave us with Western Sydney University and Southern Cross University, it gave us the drive to create an evidence-based and bespoke program for the Australian community. And I think that was the ability to make a structured program that was scalable and that gave back to the community as well.
And to tell us more exactly about how EndoThrive is working, we've got our program manager, Divya Gokul, and well done to you, Donna, for helping make this happen, because also at Southern Cross Austereo, fantastic workplace. They're looking into the EndoThrive program, so it's really, really fantastic to see. And we're going to hear from Dani as well, who's experienced firsthand at Showpo with it. But Divya, first, how did you translate the research from Donna into this practical accreditation program?
It's such an honour to be here, first of all, and leading on this EndoThrive program. So Donna did amazing research, and we know that there's a lot of research out there, but the learnings and findings from a lot of this research doesn't go into practically be used in workplaces. So what we did from Donna's research was break down all the individual segments and understandings of what a program like EndoThrive needs to be like. So what the research showed was it's simple accommodations, like wearing heat packs in the workplace or flexible work arrangements that made a huge difference. So how did we implement that in workplaces? It's through policy and well-being adjustments, making sure that endometriosis is highlighted in that, and then the fact that managers need to be upskilled and have the capability to deal with people, with their staff members with endometriosis. So it's those little segments that the research showed us that needed to be practically implemented. So breaking down those individual parts and then building that into the EndoThrive program.
So the NAPE 2024 funding was the game changer that helped brought Endo to life, and we're forever thankful for it. Can you tell us what that funding enabled you to do that you wouldn't have been able to do without it?
Absolutely. That funding was instrumental. So building a program from scratch just with research. So building out the structure of the program, the learning materials, the video content that goes in to make sure that it's practical, implementable in a wide variety of workplaces. So building all that content, and then making sure that we're able to test out all of the entire program in workplaces. So if we didn't have the NAPE funding, it would have just been a one-off resource, one-off awareness sessions, which we know isn't enough for workplaces to understand what endometriosis is like and support their staff better.
You mentioned the testing phase. Which organisations joined on in?
Absolutely. So we've got Dani from Showpo, who was very first part of our EndoThrive program. And we're very lucky to have her here. And then we had eHealth, which is a medical centre that supports women's health out in Brisbane. And then we have the Royal Agricultural Society of WA out in Perth. And so we had these very distinct, diverse workplaces to make sure that we understood the effect of the program. So we had clinicians do it, field workers out in the field, and we fine-tuned the program to work for them. So we know that all workplaces need fine-tuning and tailored resources, and that pilot phase really helped us get there.
Amazing. So what does the accreditation process actually involve, and how does then the workplace tick the box to be an EndoThrive accredited workplace?
Thank you. We don't want it to be just a tick box.
It's not that easy.
No. It's quite a streamlined process. So there's three main parts to it. There's a online module series for all staff members. So that's to make sure there's consistent and clear understanding across all your colleagues. It's about what not to say, what to say to your colleagues to make them more comfortable and understanding of what endometriosis and living with it is really like. There's a presentation to the senior leadership teams. So that's all about understanding endometriosis again and actually giving them the toolkits to have the discussions and provide the support they need to. And then there's a policy review. So we review your wellbeing policy according to what the best practice is from the research to make sure that it's really embedded across the organization. So pretty simple, and we tailor it to the organization. So.
And it's not just for officers as well. I know that you were able to cater it, make it so it works for, say, if there's a tradie work site.
Yeah, absolutely. So we know that every workplace is so different, needs different accommodations, and we really work to make it bespoke. Because the goal is from NAPE to improve the quality of life of women with endometriosis. And with them spending so much of our time at work, it is really instrumental that it works for every workplace there is.
Well done, Divya, to you and your team. Amazing work. And to Donna too. And to tell us how it has shaped the workplace, we've got Dani from Showpo, now one of, in fact, the first Australian workplace to take part in EndoThrive. What made you decide to pursue the accreditation?
Yeah, so thank you so much for having me, first of all. It is really amazing to be able to come here and speak about the experience that we've had. So I think, first of all, if we, as a kind of head of human resources, I've been very aware of a few people within our business that had been struggling with endometriosis. And as a woman myself, I had a lot of friends and family that had exposure to endometriosis. So we've been in touch with Divya. Divya's been amazing support for us. I had a team member within my team who was 22 years old, and her experience of endometriosis was quite severe. At one stage, she was about to lose half her bowel from endometriosis at the age of 22. She was having to take a lot of sick leave. And this, kind of is a time we're lucky in our business that we're 80% female as well. But when you think about the actual impact that a program like that has on a business that has 80% female staff, in which 1 in 7 is likely to have endometriosis, it made perfect sense for us to partner with Divya. And Divya was extremely supportive all the way through. And not just that, we were aware of some other people who suffered quite badly. And I think a lot of the managers, they just did not know how to support their team members from male through to female. They did not know how to support these women and, kind of who were really struggling. And that could be anything from, I'm having a really bad day, like they see the pain on someone's face in a meeting. They've got nowhere to kind of go and sit. They've got no relief at work. As a workplace, we wanted everyone to be able to support these individuals, and that's when it made sense for us to be part of the pilot program. We really did get on board with that, and we really didn't need to convince really anybody within the business that it was a good idea to begin the program.
Have you seen any measurable impacts like the work productivity or staff retention, the employee wellbeing?
I think it's probably touched every single part of our employment life cycle. So I think if, we start with, I think we all know that good employees are kind of retained by a good manager. So if you have a good manager who's fully across, and a lot of our managers go through, so in terms of the program itself, we have an individual contributor module and we also have a manager module. And the manager module is a lot more about how to support your employees with endometriosis. So for an employee that has endometriosis, for them to feel safe to be able to talk to their manager, male or female, about what they're going through and the support that they need, that in itself is a retention and engagement factor. We actually started implementing, so day one in our business, when people join as part of our induction, we talk about the endometriosis program. We had somebody more recently who joined when we spoke about our partnership with endometriosis and the EndoThrive program. She kind of looked a bit shocked, and she kind of sat there and she looked at me and she said, I suffer with endometriosis and I've never, ever felt comfortable. I've been working for 20 years and I've never, ever felt comfortable to say that in a workplace before. It makes other people feel safe. Since the program's launched, we've had senior leaders who are men come and speak with us and say, thank you so much for launching this program, because my wife suffers very, very badly with this. And actually, before I did the module myself, I didn't know how to support her. We also have a warehouse as well. We have endo champions. So I myself am the endo champion for the HQ, and we have an endo champion based at our warehouse as well. The men are so supportive. They really did rally behind it. They actually printed out all of their accreditation certificates and put it on their desks as well. And that's kind of a safety thing, so that the females in the business know that they can go and talk to the men. So, kind of it's that side of things. It's impacts like that it's had. But it's just overall, it's just the support and just them knowing that we will make accommodations for them if they need it, and for them to feel safe too. Things like heat packs in meetings as well. So we keep heat packs all over the office now, and like our females, and they feel safe to be able to go and grab a heat pack and sit there in a meeting with a heat pack, and we've normalised that across the business. So for us, it's just the effect around productivity, because we're able to offer more flexible work policies for them. It's the engagement side, it's the manager support side, and we've just had such incredible feedback about the program overall as well. It's been great for our business.
As a whole, you can really hear the impact that it is making in your workplace. And even when you mention words like feeling safe to talk to a manager, the fear that I used to have when I first was going through the initial diagnosis stage, because my boss couldn't see on the inside how sick I was. And I remember going into his office with such great fear and just lying to him that I had gastro for 3 years straight, basically, which wasn't the case. And the anxiety that was building up, the mental health anguish that you have, like, really is just this full circle thing. So in a workplace environment, to get the support and understanding, as you can hear firsthand, it is so, so important, this EndoThrive program. So definitely. Thank you for sharing your experience, Dani, with Showpo. And just back to Divya, you have mentioned the significant increase from both the private sector and the public organisations. Can you see how busy are you going to be in the future?
Yeah, really quite busy. So we've got a lot of interest from every industry: transport, finance, schools, medical centres. So we're seeing a lot of engagement, and that's honestly what we want to see. So we want to be even busier and get the program out to as many workplaces as we possibly can.
So listening here in this room, there might be someone going, "Ooh, we need this at work." How can they get it going?
Please reach out to me. I'm very easy to find on the Endometriosis-Friendly website, or just reach out to me, or just go to our website, contact us. We're very happy to help, assist in every way. And again, we tailor it to workplaces and make sure that it works for you, with you.
And the team at Endo Australia do so help you out as well. So it's a big group of people that are helping.
Yes, absolutely.
Now, to everyone on the panel, thank you again for your time today. This program, it is now ready to scale across Australia. What would it mean, both practically and symbolically, to see EndoThrive accreditation become the standard across workplaces, from small businesses to the public service to places like where we are right now?
It'd be a dream come true. And I think the next generation coming through will have a much better life than what we had. So that's always been my goal, is that the next generation is better off than what we were.
Yeah, wouldn't that be wonderful? Well, thank you very much for all of your valuable time today. And as mentioned, get onto the EndoThrive website, endometriosis-australia.org. You can get all the info. And I've actually interviewed Divya as well on our podcast. Got to give it a plug, right? And you can hear more in depth as to how it is benefiting those across the workplace. So thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you.
Now, I'd like to introduce someone who's been absolutely instrumental in advancing endometriosis research and medical care in Australia. Associate Professor Anusch Yazdani is our Medical Director at Endo Australia.
Thanks, Monica. Look, I'm also, with my other hat, the Medical Director for Eve Health, which was one of the first organisations. And we're a women-led women's health organisation. And we thought that we were very much across this whole endometriosis at the workplace. I can tell you that we had absolutely no idea of what's required. And I think what was said already today is really important. It's about empowering and giving the permission of all of those people at work to actually be open about what is happening in the places and supporting them in the right way. So as a medical group, absolutely EndoThrive has made a massive change to what we're doing, and I think it's been an amazing program. So thank you very much for working with us, because it's just been absolutely essential. When I started as a medical student, and this is the late 80s, I literally went back a couple of weeks ago and I had a look and see what I had in my textbook about endometriosis. And there were literally 5 lines. It was a subtext about a cause of painful periods, or dysmenorrhea, as we called it in those days. And it was literally, and I quote, when endometrium grows outside of the uterus and it bleeds and it causes pain. By the time I became a specialist and I was training, it really wasn't that different. And when I became an advanced trainee and I did my first time in Sydney, the focus was about surgery. And for the very first time at that point in 2000, I saw a very different way that endometriosis was being managed compared to what everybody else was doing in the state where I had grown up and where I'd learnt, which was Queensland, and that the disease was very differently managed. And it became very clear when I came back to Brisbane that in fact the unimodal treatment of endometriosis, that one way of managing it being by surgery alone and repeated surgery, is absolutely a recipe for failure. And this became very clear to a whole lot of us. And then in 2018, the most amazing thing happened. We had a commitment with the National Action Plan for Endometriosis. Imagine a country that accepts that a condition is not just a women's health condition. It's not just period pain, but in fact, it's a chronic disease that leads to very measurable impact on productivity and outcome. And I think that was an absolute game changer for us in Australia. And moving on a few years later on, what's happened is it's taken, between 2018 and where we are now, it's taken silos of fragmented care and brought them all together under this umbrella. And probably it wasn't as clear as anything as when we ran the World Endometriosis Congress in 2025, where in fact the Board of Endometriosis Australia was absolutely fundamental. And I've got the co-chair, Jason Abbott, sitting over here, where from all around the world people came and they were absolutely blown away by how we in Australia have managed to integrate research, multimodal clinical care, together with the input of the lived experience of those who have been affected by endometriosis. And that has just been a model for care anywhere else. And this has been achieved not just through the work of the individuals who are doing the research and clinical care, but really importantly, this is part of federal funding. And without the NAPE, we would have never got here. It just would not have been possible. That initial seed funding in Endometriosis Australia has always been very much aligned with clinicians and with researchers. And over the last 10 years, we've given more than $800,000 in research money. That money has gone into seed funding for imaging, diagnostics, non-invasive diagnostics. It's looked into developing support programs. We've used it to develop things like the EndoThrive program. So this has been absolutely fundamental in shifting the key. But we have no way of generating that type of income without federal support. And for that, organisations like the Friends of Endometriosis, the Parliamentary Friends of Endometriosis, have been absolutely critical for recognising that this is an important condition that affects all of us, in fact. Make no mistake, endometriosis in Australia continues to be a big problem. We still have massive delays in diagnosis. We still have fragmented care. But we are a long way away from where we have been. And that initial seed funding hasn't just helped along endometriosis. It's actually opened up the light on other conditions, other causes of persistent pelvic pain have all benefited from this. Adenomyosis come to the forefront. PCOS people are talking about now. Perimenopause has come to the forefront because we have given people permission to talk about this and to do this research. So on behalf of Australia's clinicians, researchers, and let alone the 1 million women who've been affected by endometriosis, I want to thank all of you here in this room for your support and for your continued commitment, including your financial commitment for the ongoing care and services, because it is needed. So thank you very much.
I think what you've outlined is Australia's journey from little funding in research to hosting the World Congress and being genuinely envied internationally. Didn't happen by accident. It happened because of successive federal government commitment and investment. And to speak to that commitment and to the government's ongoing dedication to women's health funding, I'm absolutely delighted to ask the Honourable Rebecca White, Assistant Minister for Health and Aged Care, Indigenous Health and Women.
Thanks, Monica. Good afternoon, everybody. Sorry I wasn't here with you at the very beginning. I was in another meeting, but I did catch the panel discussion, which I'm pleased about because there were some really important topics you were covering there. First, can I just pay my deep respects to the traditional owners on whose land we are meeting today, acknowledge any First Nations people who are joining with us, and also acknowledge that for women who are living in regional and remote communities, access to diagnosis and treatment for conditions like endometriosis is even more difficult than those of us who live in the cities. Thank you to Julian, Leeser, and to Lisa Chester, who are the co-chairs of the Parliamentary Friends group, because this is an important topic for us to have a bipartisan position on, to be able to work collectively across the Parliament to make sure that we are helping to elevate your voices and to inform the policy decisions of government, and for that to be something that's a shared commitment for us to see improved outcomes for women, 1 million women right across our country. I don't need to tell you about what endometriosis is. I don't need to share with you the statistics. We know them, and you've probably spoken about them already in this forum today. But I do want to just say that because of your voices being elevated in the way you have joined together to do that, it has helped to shape the national discussion. It has broken down barriers and stigma that has, I think, prevailed for such a long time around this issue, but also a broader number of women's health issues that often have been silenced and dismissed. And sometimes that's because of shame, but sometimes it's also because people feel a bit uncomfortable hearing about it. So thank you for being brave enough to come to Parliament House to have a chat with us, because it's through your work and advocacy that we were able to announce a quite significant package of support for women's health in the last budget. And I'll talk to some of those measures, and we've heard about some of the investment in research, which is really critical. And before I go into the details of the women's health package, on the research component, what we have also done through the Women's Health Advisory Council, and I recognise the work of the former Assistant Minister Jed Carney, we have now made it a compulsory for NHMRC, which is the main funding body for health and medical research, to consider sex and gender characteristics. That's from the 1st of January this year. And that will mean that more attention is given to women's health than it ever has been before. And I was delighted to meet with the CEO today and learn that more than half of research funding is going to women researchers in Australia now. So there are, I think, bright spots in the future for us to better understand some of the conditions that many women have been living with, sometimes with very little support. But the Women's Health Package was a significant commitment. As part of that, you would have heard us speaking, I hope, about the persistent and pelvic pain clinics, endometriosis clinics. So there were 33 that we had launched across the country now. So 22 have been already established, and 11 that we're opening up that have either just started opening this month or will open by next month, bringing the total to 33. Now, I recognise that for many of you, you've been in this network, you would know that accessing a GP who takes you seriously, listens to you, and spends time with you to understand your condition can be really challenging. And that's where our investment in these endo and persistent pelvic pain clinics has been really key. But I also know that for many of them, they're already seeing quite long wait lists. that is both a good and a bad thing. It's a good thing because it means women are reaching out for help, and hopefully if they can't get in immediately, they are able to get support through those networks. Bad thing because people are still waiting for the healthcare that they deserve. And we know, particularly when it comes to endo, many women have waited years and years and years for diagnosis. And I think some of these stories are some of the hardest for us to hear. And I heard a story from a woman the other day who, for years, just like so many others, had presented to doctor after doctor after doctor, asking for somebody to provide her with answers. She just couldn't understand what was happening in her body, but knew it didn't feel right and was constantly dismissed. She didn't get a diagnosis for her endo until she was about my age, a little bit older, and so it then also got kind of wrapped up in this idea that it was just perimenopause. It's nothing else that you need to be worried about. It's not a chronic health condition. It's perimenopause. So she just felt more dismissed. It was her 7th GP that she presented to who finally took her seriously and provided her a diagnosis. And I suspect that's a pretty common story shared by many that you would know in this room or you yourself may have experienced. And that's where our investment, I think, is really important, because it's not just about investing in these direct services, these 33 clinics, but it's also investing in skilling up and training the broader health workforce. What I want is for any woman anywhere in our country to be able to walk in and see a health professional, to be treated with respect and listened to, and have their concerns validated. And then hopefully a diagnosis, and then hopefully a pathway to treatment. At the moment, I know that's not happening everywhere. And it shouldn't just be limited to 33 clinics. I'd like this to be possible for you to walk in any door of any health practice anywhere in the country. That's our goal. So alongside the work we're doing in working with our health workforce, we're also investing in listing more medicines on the PBS. We've made some significant listings since early last year, including some contraceptive products, which I know are sometimes used as a treatment, but also listing medicines for endo. Some of these products or areas like contraception, we haven't listed new contraception for decades in Australia. So and then hormone therapy is another one. When you spoke about perimenopause and menopause, it's quite true. Like, there are women who are suffering and struggling who really don't need to be. And we just need to make sure we keep talking about it and get the message out there that there is help available. So that is a significant change that I hope will help more girls and women to access the support they need so they can live a good life. And I want to congratulate you, Monica, and your team and the work that's happening across the network, because not only are you helping to decrease stigma, you're creating a network of support for people, but the panel just spoke about some of the incredible work that's happening in our workplaces too. And I'm absolutely thrilled to hear of the success. I'm not surprised that you've got fabulous support from your employees, given you're caring for them so deeply. And I think that's a lesson for everybody. And I'm grateful to you for sharing that story, because it showcases what's possible, but also I think illustrates to other employers how they be a good employer and retain a happy and healthy workforce. And that's good for you, and it's good for those employees. So thank you for highlighting those sorts of stories. And I look forward to continuing to work with all of you. I know our government's very keen to make sure we do that. And thank you for the bipartisanship that you've shown around this issue, because that is really one of the key reasons why we're able to invest so confidently, because we know across the Parliament there is support. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much, Minister White. Your words are important, showing the government's actions and funding commitments. Now, before we hear from our lived experience panel, I wanted to share some exciting developments about where Endometriosis Australia is heading, because EndoThrive is just the beginning. First, I'm thrilled to report on the success of our Endo Academy nurses scholarships. Thanks to generous donors, we've now had 40 nursing scholars complete the endometriosis and pelvic pain course since 2024, with another 23 registered for our current intake. This program wouldn't be possible without our partnership with the Australian College of Nursing, and I want to acknowledge CEO Francis Rice. Your organisation's commitment to advancing nurses' education in women's health is genuinely transformative.
Let me share this scholarship means. Amelia, a 2025 scholar from Townsville, told us, I plan to share what I've learned through community education, peer learning and improving support for early diagnosis, especially in regional and remote areas where access to care is limited. I think our community will really benefit. There's a huge need for better awareness, compassionate and timely care. And this is what happens when we invest in education. So thanks to the NAIT funding, Endometriosis Australia's created comprehensive translated resources that we'll be distributing to communities right across Australia. These translated resources will bridge critical knowledge gaps in communities where English isn't a first language and reach underserved communities, including our LGBTQI+ community and teens. This is exciting, and you're the first to hear this. We will have representation at the health hubs of the Women's Asian Cup 2026 in Perth, Gold Coast and Sydney this March. This will officially announced in a few days and will mark the launch of our Endometriosis Awareness Month campaign on March 1st. It's exciting because it brings us our next Endo Academy project. Research from Federation University in 2025 reveals that something that should concern all of us. Periods are significantly impacting girls' participation in organised sport, with nearly 1 in 5 girls aged 10 to 16 considering dropping out due to period-related challenges. I want to acknowledge Jane Strachan, who is here with us today and conducted this groundbreaking study. Jane, your research has given us the evidence base we desperately needed. With the right funding, Jane can complete her PhD and provide us with the solutions we need. But before we hear about that, we hope to achieve with that research. Let's go to our next panel.
Thank you very much. And this panel is talking about lived experience of endo in adolescence and sport. I'd love to say that the sporting side of endo is me talking about my dreams of becoming a hockey roo player, but that was dismissed when I turned 16 and told I was unfit. So instead I talk on the radio for a living. But we are blessed today to be joined by Holly Crawford, who is an amazing Endo Australia ambassador, has been to the Olympics and has got a really interesting story to share with us in terms with their endo journey. But first, we would love to welcome to our Endometriosis Australia family, Lucia Field,
Hi.
the Blue Wiggle.
Hello.
And Nikki Fields. We really appreciate you coming along. Hi, Mum. Welcome. Now, Lucia, really excited to meet you and to welcome you to the Endo family. Would love to hear your story about going back to when you're at school, your formative years. What was it like navigating endo and the social side of things, going to school, having to do homework when you're dealing with such a debilitating illness?
Yeah, well, I was 13 turning 14 when I got my first period, and I was actually living in Melbourne away from home in Sydney. I was at Australian Ballet School, so I was at boarding school, just another added layer, and a ballet dancer, so having to wear tights and a leotard every single day is already very daunting, and then having to deal with the excessive bleeding and feeling bloated and being a teenage girl, you know, and you don't really hear about that at such a young age. And I think I was 15 when I got rushed to hospital because I was in such intense pain, and Mum was in Sydney and I was basically by myself. And, you know, I was in hospital and Mum flew to Melbourne the next day and had an ultrasound, was told, I'm fine, nothing's wrong, and you can't get an internal ultrasound at 15 either. So was kind of left with more questions than answers, really. And then 2020 happened. I stopped ballet. I came home, and my symptoms had just gotten worse, really. There was one day where Mum and I were out. I was in the car. I couldn't get out of the car. I was in so much pain. I was lying down. Had to come straight back home. I was throwing up. I passed out. It was just intense, and that's, you know, when we said we really have to do something about this. And by this point, I had tried 3 different contraceptive pills, you know, and, you know, all that fantastic stuff, and nothing had worked. And I'm very, very lucky and privileged that I was diagnosed so young. I was 19, I believe, when I had my laparoscopy, and I'll give a lot of that to Mum, because Mum has endo as well, and she really did advocate for me in getting something done about it as well.
When you were told that, when you had that scan and you couldn't find anything, and you kind of get dismissed and you go through those emotions, and then you think maybe I am crazy, but no, you're not. Let me reassure you, you really do feel isolated and like you're in your own little bubble. How did that feel for you?
Just like you're quite alone, even though I wasn't. But you do feel like you're quite alone, because you want that reassurance that you aren't crazy, and that pain does mean something. And I didn't get that. And, it was I also felt a bit heavier as well, because, you go to a hospital, and when you go to a hospital, you think you're going to, leave with a diagnosis. And unfortunately, that wasn't what happened. So that's why it is really special that I am here today. Thank you so much, because I would really love to advocate for a lot of younger girls as well who have no idea what's going on, especially in sports as well. It's really important.
And yeah, I've heard lots of stories of girls who are in their teens and they will just keep it all to themselves, and a lot of them will really struggle, and socially they're just unable to go and hang out and they feel outcasted. So it really is just this whole thing that does happen when you are going through endo. And for you, Mickey, as well, seeing your daughter go through that, I've spoken to my mum about it, and she was similar. She had endo, so she knew, and she's also a retired nurse, so she knows everything. Shout out to Barb. Barb's not here, but she just knows everything. How was that, you, seeing your daughter going through such an awful time?
It was awful. And I understood it, and I pretty much thought I knew what it was, even when she was in hospital and we didn't come away with the diagnosis. I was actually quite angry, because for a lot of parents, I think they feel like they failed their daughter when it does go on and on and on before they do actually get a diagnosis. I actually looked at it differently, because I'd experienced myself. I felt like it was the system that had failed these girls, that do continue to fail, even though it is vastly different to when I had endometriosis. But my story was very different as well. Everyone's talking about how endometriosis relates to basically period pain. I never had a period pain in my life, and I didn't know I had endometriosis till I was actually 31 years of age. And I ended up having cystitis as well, and I just kept bleeding and bleeding for almost 2 months, where I nearly passed out, was going from doctor to doctor. The second last doctor said to me, "Take this tablet, you'll stop the bleeding if it doesn't come back." And I was kind of shocked, because I was dismissed. I felt very dismissed actually, till I came across an incredible doctor who her father introduced me to in Sydney, and he basically sent me straight to hospital. He says, "Do you have endometriosis? Do you have cystitis?" And explained the whole history behind it. Had no idea about it. Had the operation. When I came out of the operation, they said to me, "Best thing you can do is fall pregnant." And I was lucky enough at that time where it kind of worked out really well, and I fell pregnant. And if it wasn't for our GP, and if it wasn't for the operation, etc., this young lady likely wouldn't be here. So, so I'm very grateful. And then she has a younger sister and younger brother, and also later on those symptoms came back again, and there were issues around that as well. So there's lots to look at, lots of different factors that play a part with endometriosis, I'm sure. Certainly with symptoms, they're quite different. And but I was aware for Lucia, it was really important that we pursue that, and we took her back to the same doctor, and etc. She had the operation and she's better. And the medication that was released last year as well.
Dinosane? Is that correct? Dinosane? Yeah. I didn't even know it existed, only just got prescribed it a couple of weeks ago, which is quite incredible. Had never heard about it. So seems to be helping. It's very, awesome stuff.
Excellent. And every patient is different. You hear so many different stories. And you mentioned the one too, Mickey, around being told, oh, if you have a baby, that'll cure it. That's one of my favourites. Because it's so easy, right? Cute. What do you wish you would have known earlier? And say if there's a parent sitting here in the room and they are going through the emotions with their child and believe it could be endo, where would you suggest they turn when it comes to that unknown, trying to figure out navigating as a mum of someone who could have it?
I honestly had a wonderful GP that helped us, but certainly nowadays, and with the program that's running with Endometriosis Australia, EndoThrive, I would probably contact them first if it was right now. I would say, go to where people can actually help you, people will listen to you, get the message out there, also learn as much as you can about it and what you can do to help.
And to keep on fighting until you get those answers, right? Yeah, you got to keep on advocating.
Yeah, absolutely.
And well, thank you very much to both of you, especially Lucia. You're busy doing your Wiggles thing. And oh, no, you chilled out. Okay. All right. Oh, all the time in the world. Well, we're very excited to have you on board with the Endo Australia family. So thank you for your time. Next up, we are going to move to Holly to talk all things sport. So Holly, you have gone and done the snowboarding thing, elite, Winter Olympian, all of the X Games, competing at the highest level while managing endometriosis. Can you share your diagnosis story? And I have met Holly over the years, and every time she tells her story and how she's like, I've broken this and I broke, how many bones have you broken in your body?
I don't like to discuss. We're just, it's easier to mention the ones I haven't broken, but I don't like to bring them.
There we go. So your endo story, can you share your diagnosis and going through all of the emotions of that?
Yeah, sure. Look, I went to 4 Winter Olympics, which is not advisable, and let you all know now. I basically spent nearly 20 years being poked and prodded and, having my health overseen by some of Australia's best medical professionals. And I didn't actually get diagnosed until I retired. And looking back now, I look at a lot of when you're falling 22 feet out of the sky into solid ice every other day of the week and, catching an aeroplane and, to and from different continents every other week, it's no wonder that your pelvis hurts and your back hurts and you're tired. So obviously, it was a hard place to diagnose, but obviously no one was talking about it and there wasn't a language for it, and so it wasn't until I retired and I got really, really sick. Obviously I've gone out of adrenaline mode and I was passing out and, I literally couldn't cope. And I've competed in Olympics with 2 broken wrists, shattered knee and fractured ribs. And this was way worse than that. Yeah.
Just see, there we go, the broken thing. It's every time. How do you think that the endometriosis, when you do look at that, would have affected your athletic career, looking back on it now? Now you've got a bit of an understanding. If you knew earlier on, do you think that could have changed things for you?
Absolutely. It's phenomenal when I think back on it. Things like fatigue, recovery time, injuries that I incurred, probably because of my endometriosis, so on and so forth. It's really important, I think, to have these conversations and get the words out there for people to be able to talk about it. Do you know what I mean? I was in a male-dominated sport. A lot of our coaches were male. A lot of our support staff were male, and we weren't sitting around, sipping protein shakes and stretching, talking about our menstrual cycles. So yeah.
Well, yeah, that's an interesting vision now I think of it. But it's interesting you do mention the sport and talking about periods. And I know when I was playing hockey and I did represent the ACT, so there was a little bit of representation there, not as good as the Olympics or Hockey Roo. But definitely there was never any of this spoken about. And when I was going through periods and the pain, I would just kind of just not go to training or anything like that. And there is a lot of research and information coming through now that there are girls who are avoiding doing sport. And like you've said, if you're in a male-orientated sport too, it can be really difficult when it comes to the sporting side of things and managing endometriosis.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I think it's really important. I do what I do with Endometriosis Australia. And as Auntie said, for women that don't have access to, I had physios that were friends that, were the top of their game, doctors that I could call, specialists that I could call. And I worry about these, the young girls especially, but people out in rural Australia that don't have this sort of access, and they don't have anybody to talk to, and they don't have a language to use around it. I think it's really important to start at these grassroots sort of areas to get it going, because, it's systematic. If you start right there at the very bottom, by the time they've reached the Olympics, there's so much support for it. And it wasn't that my team was unsupportive. It was that they didn't have the education to understand what was actually going on, or things that they might be missing.
Do you think even in the sporting world, maybe something like the EndoThrive program could work really, really well when it comes to coaches and people learning? Definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. The new grassroots endo that everyone is hopefully that's incoming. I think is really, really important, because it is, and these young girls that are leaving sport, that are banking out because it's too hard or it's embarrassing, and there's shame and taboo, and there has been for so many years around women's health and all these things. And it's really important to get it out there, and to get people talking about it, so that they have somewhere that they can go if they're feeling, if they're in pain, or if they're feeling sick, or if they need to take the day off. Because as I said, I've no doubt any number of my injuries were because I was absolutely completely overloaded, and that doesn't even include the mental load that I was carrying by, just pretending that I was okay, or pushing the pain away, and all those sorts of things. It's really important.
And do you think that you hid a lot from people as to what was actually going on in your body when you do look back on it? That you didn't actually speak up?
Absolutely. Look, there's any number of reasons for that, especially in a male-dominated sport. But also because you want to keep competing as well, and often they'll stop you if you've, really hurt yourself. So you've got to pretend that you didn't. But also, as I said, the fatigue and the mental load, and the travel, and all these things that surround elite sport. And it's really, really important to start at the bottom, so that by the time, they've made it up, because, lest we forget, all these young women are the leaders of tomorrow. Do you know what I mean? They're the people that will be in our workplaces. They're the people that will be out there doing that. And if they've been supported the whole way through, then they can be a voice for other people when they get there.
Now, we have got a sports physio sitting next to you. Do you want to just maybe ask some questions quickly as to how you're feeling? Or
I actually was Holly's physio for the middle part of her career. And I'm a titled sports physio in Australia, so worked with Holly and winter sports and many other elite sports. And knew that there was a miss. I also have endometriosis. So whilst Holly was having many of her issues, I guess this speaks to the systemicness of it. Was able to normalise some of those issues because they'd been normalised for me in my own athletic career as well, and knew there was a missing piece, so have retrained as a pelvic health physio, and I believe is Australia's first dual title for both, but there'll be many, many more coming. But it is such an important piece for us to have these conversations. Traditionally in our sports medicine models in Australia, pelvic health has not had a place.
No.
And that's starting to change. And Holly's right, it has to come from the bottom up, but it also has to come from the top down. And that is starting, but we have a long way to go.
Well, my pelvic physio, I praise them up in Brisbane. They're absolutely amazing. And even as a sports physiotherapist, you mentioned specialising in that area and then doing the dual role now. Managing endo, how do you think that this is really going to help with young women when they go ahead and pursue sport in future?
I think endometriosis is, as we've sort of already heard today, it's a systemic disease. It's a whole body condition that can affect so many things. And even from the symptoms, I think the most, and even the taglines that have been up on the screen, it's period pain is probably the most common symptom, but it's not the only symptom. And I think that awareness of those symptoms, which again, period pain is the most iconic, but other types of pelvic pain as well. It also has such a close link with the pelvic floor function, and these are all of the private conversations that we just don't have often with ourselves, or let alone anybody else, and particularly not in sporting environments. So bladder function, bowel function, our vaginal or sexual function. So that could be for girls that aren't of age yet. Inserting tampons can be incredibly painful too. So, and it can also, though, and this is, I guess, the next level that I'm really quite interested in too, is, and it's not rocket science, the anatomy that we're talking about in our middle zone, it also impacts how our hips and our back and our pelvis function. And this is where Holly's story is so interesting, is because she was falling from the sky and did have, fractures. And so she did have positive markers for all of those that were muddying the waters, so to say, of the other symptoms she was experiencing. In a sport that is not so contact heavy, so more of the running football codes, we are seeing though that hip and groin pain and lumbopelvic pain is really highly associated with those girls that are getting persistent pelvic pain or endometriosis. Again, to say that it's where we still need more research here, because so many of these girls that we treat, I work mostly in the elite sports setting, aren't diagnosed with endo yet. Some are, but there's many that you can already tell, when you do start screening them, which we're starting to now, that there's so many out there that still are. So looking at it from both lenses, it's not just pelvic health, it's all internal and external, as well as, Holly had a lot of dietary issues as well. Do you remember? We nearly couldn't get on planes a few times. But it affects so many things. But when you start to, I call often Holly my sort of zero patient of that, when I did start to retrain, it's so obvious when you know what to ask. And they're basic questions that, again, if we can start to get that information out there, it's so obvious when you see it. And then you can start to signpost where those girls can go. And it's not just the girls you need to educate, it's the staff, male and female, parents as well. Again, this rises up through, we're doing it just starting at the top level. We can make such a huge groundswell by doing it at the bottom level as well, at the grassroots.
Well, you would have seen initially when endo first started getting spoken about and people just looking and go, sorry, what? And there's still a lot of that too. I've had a friend who the doctor actually needed her to spell out how endometriosis was when she went in there and spoke to the GP about it. Don't go see that person. But you would have seen how things have changed over the years, and the conversations, by just even having this conversation today, is helping to raise that awareness.
Absolutely. The ball is rolling and it's unstoppable now, but we still have so much to go. Again, I'm constantly pushing at the high performance level, and we know that from the top down we are getting where, but it's not commonplace. We do have pelvic health physios now that are starting to become embedded in elite sports, through with the Matildas, through with AFL, through with Super Netball, but we absolutely need it. And it's not commonplace though. I'm one of the rare few that's doing that in Australia. We need it to be commonplace. It will become so. But I would argue that we don't need, it's unfinancially feasible for that to occur at grassroots. But again, the screening and the education and then basic management strategies that are actually quite commonplace and do actually look like what athletes should often be doing anyway, but for them to understand why, rather than it being a separate piece of going, if we can keep a lot of it sometimes is just basic exercises, mobility work, release, stretching of the pelvic lumbo sort of abdominal region, which is a warm up and a cool down in our grassroots would be, can we optimize that part in high performance land? We're really talking about athlete preparation and recovery. If we can get those things happening, that can at least start to help with some symptom management. And then again, signposting them to where to go and to get their diagnoses.
So you can see that pelvic physio can help potentially keep a girl in sport.
Absolutely.
If she's going through it at that stage.
Absolutely. Physios spend a lot of time with their clients.
Sorry about that.
And so get to have such a unique lens. We get to touch people. We get to give them exercises. We get to be pseudo-psychologists. You really have a powerful lens and a lot to give. We have many, many tools in our toolkit.
I need your number. Can you tell us about the Endo Playbook and why it's so important to educate when it comes to grassroots with the coaches, the mums, the dads, the sidelines, everyone?
Again, I think this doesn't fall on one person, it falls on all of us. And again, if this is something that is scalable, it's quite simple. It can be rolled out. Australia, we're a sports loving nation. Nothing unites us more than sport. Over, with the Australian Open's on now, like whatever code we're talking about in sport, that's the language that Australians across the board love. We've talked as well about the difficulties of access to care. Sport, a program like this would be able to get rural communities as well as urban access happening. It's cross-generational from the girls through their parents, through the coaching staff, both sexes involved, multicultural. It's all of the things. Sport is such a powerful vehicle for change, and this is such a fantastic way that we can make that happen. We just need to get it in there. And again, it takes funding. The momentum is happening, but it's so important to get this happening.
Yeah. And what about from the athlete side of things, Holly? How can you see this making a change in future with the Endo Playbook and grassroots sport?
Look, it's amazing. I've no doubt it would have made a phenomenal difference to my career. Not that it wasn't great anyway. But yeah, it is. It's the education. You need to educate, and without the education, you can't. And as Jess says, sport is a really great way, especially in a place like Australia, to get it across, because people will listen, people participate. It is multicultural, it's cross generational, it's all of these things. And so yeah, I think it would have really made a very big difference to myself. It would have made a very big difference to my life after sport, because I'm now riddled with injuries that probably could have been avoided.
Well, hopefully the Endo Playbook is going to help create some change and really educate those. So well done, and thank you very much for talking through this afternoon with us on that. And while we've got all four up here, I would just love to ask each of you if you could give one message to everyone in this room today. Could be about EndoThrive, the Endo Playbook, about the health policy. What would your big message be when it comes to endometriosis?
Exactly what Jess said. Education.
Yeah. Education. Also, what you guys said. Education for all ages. I'm also really loving that we're educating younger girls as well. I know I'm teaching a lot of my friends, and to be honest, I really don't know a lot. I only just learnt about this and after I got the surgery. So keep doing what you're doing. Every single person in this room is absolutely making a difference and making a change. So thank you.
The cost of doing it versus the cost of not doing it. The cost of not doing it, as we've alluded to already, the impact from societal, socioeconomic, health markers through the lifespan, it's immense. I don't think we probably can measure it. We have a gist of it, but if you weigh up the two columns of cost of doing versus not, it's pretty clear.
Oh, yes. I know I procrastinate a lot when I think about the price of having to manage endo. So you've raised a really, really good point. So thank you, Jess. Thank you. Thank you to everyone.
And our panellists, Lucia, Mickey, Holly and Jess. So they're the stories. That's why we're here. It was Lucia's birthday yesterday as well, so please wish her a happy birthday. Let me tell you about the solution we're working towards with Endo Playbook. Have you heard about Jane Strachan's research that nearly 1 in 5 girls are dropping out of sport because of period-related challenges? You've heard about Holly competing at the Olympics level while managing endometriosis, and you've heard about Lucia about navigating the condition as a young person. And you've heard from Jess about how proper support and education can change everything. You may be aware that the Parliament of South Australia's Select Committee on Endometriosis report, released last year, recommends expanding funding beyond schools to include sporting clubs and sessions for parents. So the Endo Playbook is designed to be that solution. It's an online training program for grassroots sport coaches, the mums and dads on the sidelines on weekend mornings, the volunteers running netball clinics and soccer training and athletics clubs. These are the adults who see our daughters regularly, who notice when something's off and who have the trust and relationship to have those early conversations. And we can equip them with the knowledge to recognise symptoms, normalise conversations about periods and pain, and know when to encourage families to seek medical support. And we can catch endometriosis earlier. We can keep girls in sport, and we can prevent years of delayed diagnosis and unnecessary suffering. But I'm going to be honest with you, this is going to require funding and requires political will, and it requires recognising that investing in programs like Endo Playbook, like Jess said, isn't just health policy, it's sports policy, it's education policy, and frankly, it's economic policy. Think about what it would mean if every grassroots sports coach in Australia had access to Endo Playbook. Think about the girls who could keep in sport, the diagnosis we could fast track, the suffering we could prevent, the Matildas, the Diamonds, the Opals that would come along. That's the future we're building, and with your support, we can make it happen. Now, before I wrap up, thanks to everyone who made it possible, to Minister White, the co-chairs, the Parliamentary Friends of Endometriosis, MPs Chesters and Leeser, and to entire Endometriosis Australia team, and especially to Savannah Fielder and Divya and Donna. You organised today brilliantly. I want to make a call out as well to Jason Abbott, Professor Jason Abbott, who's here, is also a co-founder. Thank you so much for everyone who came today.